It is time to tag some fish at the backyard pond. It's been a long time coming. This pond was dug 3 years ago. There was no pond here. We dug it with an excavator. Then we stocked it with minnows and bait fish and sunfish, and those minnows and sunfish have done well. They've reproduced, they've spawned. So we finally have enough bait fish in here that we went out a couple weeks ago and caught a couple bass, just a handful, and I want to get them tagged so that we can start a baseline weight and length on them, and then we can feed them hard and see how much weight we can put on these fish. So trying to get a fish tagging machine is one thing, that's for sure. If you do a Google search on them, you'll find some really high-end units, and then you'll find some really low-end units, and nothing really in between. I got this one from an aquatic company, and it is pretty basic. This is kind of like a machine that you would see when you buy clothing in a store, and that nylon plastic tag is on your t-shirt. It's the same idea. The basics of it are the tags load into the gun, you catch the fish, insert the needle into the upper back of the fish, release, and that one tag should stay in there, and you have that numbered tag that you can always know what your fish is. I don't know about this thing. All of the instructions talk about clothing, so there is no listing of fish on this instruction brochure, so this is a little intimidating to do for sure with a flopping around fish here. I have to get the needle in properly, pull the trigger, twist it, and release. I only have about 4 or 5 decent bass in this pond, so if we do get one up on here, I don't want to harm that fish. So I have this rubber mat down. We'll wet it with some water so we don't damage the scales of the fish. I want to get a quick measurement in length that we'll document, and I also have the digital scale where I'll take a weight, and that will be our benchmark where we start with these fish, and then we'll be able to continue to watch them grow as we feed them pretty hard here with some minnows. So this is the introductory weigh-in for them. We're all set up. That was the easy part. Now we got to go out and catch these fish. They've been eating heavily on the minnows that I've stocked here over the last month and a half. So I don't know how easy they're going to be to catch, but we'll try tonight in the evening, see if we can get our first fish, and see if I can figure out how to pin down a fish, jam a needle into it, and then release a tag. This is definitely a little bit intimidating the first time, so we'll see how it goes. I tossed a handful of minnow food in about 3 minutes ago, and there's been 3 bass strikes coming out of the water there, so they're kind of in the mode here to feed. I'll see if I can get them to bite an artificial lure here though, because there's so many minnows swarming around that food. Got one. There he is. Our first fish. Our first fish, he hit immediately. This, I believe, is an original fish that I tossed in here when it was a 1/2 inch fingerling. One quick edit. Everything I say about this fish is actually for the next fish. Does that make any sense? This fish, I believe, has been in here for 3 years. It was a 1/2 inch little fry when I put it in here. Tail together, 14 inches, 1.41 pounds. Stay. You want to send it in the back dorsal, 3.5 inch down. Will that hold? We'll see. Ugh. Ah. There's fish number 1. We'll get it back in the water. There he goes. I'm going to tag the smallmouth, one on the right, one on the left side of the body. And then if I see them swimming around the pond, I'll kind of know which one's which because I don't have a lot of fish in here. So that was a left side tag. That was first cast with this crayfish, or crawfish, depending on where you're from. We'll see if we can get one more here before it's too dark to shoot video. They're still feeding over there. That was a huge jump. Wow, he had it. Almost took my head off with that one. That bass is sitting right at shore and it's had it twice in its mouth. I'm going to do a quick change. This is like a classic old lure. I used these as a kid all the time. The head and tiny torpedo. You know what? I take it back. This is the original fish that came in here as a 1/2-inch fry, for sure. It's always been a super light colored fish, and that's just a beautiful smallmouth. That's been here for 3 years. It was a 1/2 inch long 3 years ago. That last fish we caught is, I bet, when I check my notes, the fish that we caught in the river 3 weeks ago. It was dark and had those worms, little worm dots on it. This is a beautiful, clean fish. This is my most aggressive bass. I'm gonna give it some water here. Eating well. This one eats a lot of my minnows. 13.5 inches, 1.05 pounds. All right, time to tag it. We've given it some water on the right side of the fish. Hold that fish down. And go right in here, gently into the fish. There we go. We have number 2002. 002. Right side of the fish, really nice smallmouth, just a beautiful smallmouth bass. Get this guy back into the water. Some beautiful color on that fish. Good and healthy. This is my most aggressive bass. All right, we'll let this guy go. There he goes. So the sun's setting, I've got a little bit of time to take a few more casts. The last couple weeks I've been trying to train these fish to feed on the minnows that I'm feeding with the pellet food. And there's always 2 bass in this corner. I don't know if they become territorial in this pond, but I've been really focusing on this corner where I've been casting, and I always see 2 bass, never really 3 together. So we've got 2 now. I believe I have my original stocked bass that was 2 inches long 3 years ago in here. And it should be pushing some decent numbers, but it's also a very smart fish and a shy fish. So that's the next one to catch. And I definitely have 2 largemouth in here that I really haven't seen much of. So I don't know if they're down at the other end, but if not, I'm going to keep this video going. And I want to tag all these fish here before the fall. Small little rock bass. I stocked these 3 years ago. I caught them as 1-inch rock bass in a minnow trap. I had a fish there. I believe that was the tagged one, the bigger smallmouth. We're back at the pond for another day of trying to catch these fish to tag them. It certainly would have made sense to have the tagging system before I caught the fish and put them in, so now I'm working backwards. I've definitely put a little bit of time in trying to catch these fish, so starting to get a little bit frustrated. We've got a really warm streak for this time of the year, so it's hot, the water's warmed up, the minnows are really active, the bass that I can see are active too, so hoping to come through with another one, at least tag a 3rd fish would be nice, and hopefully a 4th and 5th. Fish number 1 that we've tagged, I've caught that one twice, and fish number 2 that we've tagged, I've actually caught that one 3 times. So they're definitely aggressive, they're in this area, so I don't know if the other ones are just staying down there or what, but I gotta change things up a bit and try to get a fish here that I haven't tagged before. We got a largemouth. We got one of the largemouth. We got one of the largemouth. Finally. So we have 12.25 inches. Very hot day. I want to get this fish back quickly. That is 0.99, 1 pound. Right side. I'm gonna go down. Here we go.
right about there.
There we go, fish number 3, largemouth bass, 1 pound, 12 1/4 inches. Nice and bright colored here in this light colored water. Gently. There he is. Up next, I want to set out and catch some more largemouth bass for this pond. I want these bass to spawn this coming spring, and I don't think I have enough largemouth bass in here to have a spawn. The smallmouth, I think I do have enough, but I need to get some more largemouth bass in this pond before spring.